Sunrise Dailies. Just about 30 minutes before we head back there. Well, we'll begin with oil prices, where prices rebounded. Yesterday was really red, but it rebounded this morning by more than 1%, pairing previous session's losses on supply concerns amid escalating Middle East conflict and stronger U.S. services sector. That saved the day a bit, and a cut in production at Libya's Sarara oil field. Looking at the numbers this morning, it's like opposite of what we had yesterday about this time. 1.27% for Brent at $77.27 a barrel. Well, it's I guess we should also know that this means less revenue for Nigeria, since it's Brent, that's our mainstay in the country for revenue. WTI, on the other hand, is $74.08 after it dropped 1.56% today. And of course, those issues are still there. Oil supply was limited with mounting concerns over concerns that Iran, which is a key Middle East producer, may retaliate against Israel, and the assassination of a Hamas leader that happened last week in Tehran, an Israeli attack that killed a Hezbollah commander in Lebanon, potentially leading to a wider regional oil war. Oil was also supported overnight, a little bit of hope coming in the United States. The services sector activity in the United States, we saw it rebounded from a 4-year low in July, giving a bit of hope. We know that the fear of recession was a major driver of oil prices yesterday. So oil gains occurred a mild broader against equity trading. It was supported by that and occurred amid a broader rally in Asian equity markets. We've also seen a bit of recovery in the Asian stocks. Also yesterday was bloody red. Concerns of lower productivity at Libya's 210,000 barrel per day Sarara oil field also buoyed prices. Output at the field, which is one of the country's largest, has fallen about 20% because of ongoing protests in the country. Seems there's protest everywhere. We're going to turn 2024 year protest, I wonder. Now back here in Nigeria, good news. NNPC Limited has launched a new crude oil grade. It's called the Utapate crude oil blend, and that's been supplied into the international market. This blend is extracted from oil mining lease OML 13, located offshore Akwa Ibom State in Nigeria and operated by NNPC subsidiary NEPL. This new addition, similar to the Nembe crude oil grade launched last year, has low carbon footprints in line with the specifications required by major European buyers. Currently, Utapate crude oil production stands at 28,000 barrels a day, with plans to increase to 50,000 barrels per day, and the blend has a low sulfur content of 0.06 about that. The first cargo is heading to Spain and marks a significant milestone for Nigeria's oil industry. And of course, that should be a bit of good news and perhaps a boost to Nigeria's revenue. Well, talking about good news, it's a good one for Dangote because the GCR ratings has affirmed the national scale long scale term and short-term issuer ratings of AA+ and A1+ for that company. According to Dangote Industries Limited, we see that the GCR in its recent report also affirmed the national scale long-term issuing rating of AA+ NG accorded to each of Dangote's industries, and the funding PLC Series 1 of 10.5 billion naira tranche A, as well as 177.1 billion naira tranche B bonds. And well, a whole lot. We'll give you more details, obviously, of that, but we say congratulations to Dangote, in the midst of all of the not so good story and hitting that the company or the group has had to witness in recent times. This affirmation of their rating gives them a bit of hope. Now we look at the Naira and something interesting opening the week. NAFEX appreciated that. Let's look at the numbers right there. See, it's an appreciation for NAFEM as at yesterday, but we're still around 1,600 the close of trade on Monday. 1,607 naira 15 kobo at opening, and 1,617 naira 8 kobo, gained 0.61%. And for NAFEX, that's a drop, but we now know to keep our eyes right here. That's where we get the real value for the naira. NAFEX yesterday, 1,612 naira 81 kobo, after it dropped 0.78%. Well, let's delve in on this and a whole other burning issue, economic burning issue, with the Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rwani. Mr. Rwani, good morning, and thank you for your time. Well, I think the first thing would be help us to understand the Naira, and of course, connected to the protest, which is the hottest issue in the country at this time.
Good morning, Ini. Yes, the protest is expensive, and what we have done is to analyze the total cost impact of that. So the GDP of Nigeria is about it's about $581 million if the entire economy is shut down for 1 day. For 2 days, it's about almost $1.16 billion. So that is the cost if you shut down the economy, but the economy was not totally shut down. It was shut down partially. So if you take an average for 4 days running, and let us say it's only 50% of the economy affected, you will find that it comes to about almost $1.45 billion. So that is the cost impact. But the reality is that the economy was not totally shut down. But what is happening is that some activities were stymied, and some people were holding back others. But it's a very expensive exercise, both from a macroeconomic perspective, but also psychologically and sociologically. People are beginning to believe that, okay, can I go to work? Have not added the time of people staying in queues, and the fact that when one sector shuts down, it affects the other. So the interrelationship and the linkages between one sector and the other are very expensive. So the country needs further protests and further strikes, right? Just as much as it needs a bullet in the head. Nigeria cannot afford this. So the leadership has to understand that you can't allow this thing to foster. And the people have to understand that there are time lags between when policies are made and when impacts are felt. But the real connection between both sides is the fact that there's a credibility gap on the side of the government, and there's a crisis of false expectations on the part of credibility gap on the part of the governing, and there's a false expectation on the part of the government. So crisis of false expectation. Now, the meeting ground is communication. That is, the administration has to engage and enter into dialogue, not just dialogue for the sake of talking, but dialogue for the sake of meaningful conversation and genuine conversation, knowing very well that the people are the masters here, and the governing class, that is us, the leadership, have to listen to them and carry out what they require in a meaningful manner. That is the real issue right now.
All right, so we also saw the oil. We saw a huge crash, and we're seeing a rebound this morning. And then when we juxtapose that with the Utakpate crude oil blend that Nigeria has just recovered, does it give us a bit of an edge?
No, if you say that the price of oil, if you can look at it, the price of oil has dropped to $75 a barrel on the back of what happened in the Southeast Asian markets and the fear that the U.S. economy could go into a recession. I think that's part of it. But as far as we are concerned in Nigeria, we're having to deal with some factors, macroeconomic factors that will stabilize the economy, irrespective of whether there's a protest or not, or whether the protest lingers on. But we think that the protest there will be some accommodation and dialogue between the federal government of Nigeria and the people of Nigeria. That conversation, we expect that to continue. But in the meantime, certain things are happening. And I want to point out one. The retail Dutch auction system is commencing tomorrow. the Central Bank of Nigeria has not said that it's going to be weekly or bi-weekly or something, but that retail Dutch auction will commence tomorrow. That what it means is that if I go and if I bid for anything that is for my personal travel allowance or for school fees or for importation of goods, I will go to my bank, and my bank would put the bid and put my name on the list to the Central Bank of Nigeria, and my bank will also put an amount that Bismarck Rawane has bidded for foreign exchange for his travel allowance, and he wants it. He's agreed to pay 1,700. If the central bank has $20 million to sell, once it sells to the highest bidder until it gets to a point where it cuts off and say this is a stop rate for today. So the next time they will have an auction, the Nigerian retail auction that INI will bid and say she wants to travel for holidays, and she's now bidding at 1,500. But because Bismarck Rawane lost at 1,700, the chances that you would win the auction at 1,500 is low. Therefore, you will probably bid higher. So the initial reaction, as far as I'm concerned, is that it's going to make the naira slightly weaker in the short run because everybody is bidding. But the point is that if I bring in my goods, if I'm importing rice, and I win my bid at 1,900 for $1, and you win your bid at 1,500 for $1, you will be able to sell your rice faster than I, and I will lose. I'll be stuck with very expensive inventory. So what happens is that I will then go back the next time and bid at a lower rate. So what does the Dutch auction do? It leads to efficient price discovery, and the naira will begin to find its value. 1, 2, it clears the air as to whether the central bank is discriminating in its sale of foreign exchange to its favorites. So once that is clear, that 1, there's a price discovery, 2, that there's no favoritism, it's objective, you'll find that the true value of the naira will emerge from that process. So for now, yesterday the naira depreciated a little bit because people are not fully aware of the modalities of this new system. It is, by the way, it's not a new system. We had a retail Dutch auction before. We had a wholesale Dutch auction. So that will happen. But another factor that we must bear in mind is that every bank has to put naira behind its bidding. So the question of having a carry trade in which you would borrow money from the central bank to buy foreign exchange for the central bank does not exist. You must fund your account. Your account must be in credit, and your customers will give you naira to go and bid. And if later on they find out that the naira you gave to them, you didn't use it for bidding and you use it for something else, then there will be a lot of furor. So 1, it's going to lead to tighter money supply, that is higher interest rates, but at the same time, it will lead to a more stable exchange rate in the short run. And you can see already that Dangote has brought down the price of diesel and brought down the price of kerosene. So we are beginning to see some form of reduced volatility in some of the essential commodities that are being traded at this time.
Anyway, so we also have to consider that time lag for policy implementation to have full effect. Do we have an idea of how long it might take for this to translate into the value of the naira?
Well, the truth is that, like I said at the beginning of this session this morning, there's a lag between when you announce policies and when it has the desired impact. And also there'll be unintended consequences. I think that you've seen the naira stabilize around the 1,500, 1,600 level. But at the same time, we must understand that that is not the demand supply factor and the difference between the power rate and the market rate. So let me give you an example. If you want to travel tomorrow and you want to go and bid, you will send all your papers to your bank. Your bank will send it to the central bank. And at what rate are you going to get it? You are going to be getting it at the NAFEX rate, which is about 1602. If you go across the road to the Malam to buy, you'll get it at 1600 or 1580. So the chances that you are going to start bidding for buying travel allowance where you can go to the BDC and buy it at the retail level, the rates are the same. The incentive to arbitrage and to take advantage of markets, arbitrage is defined as taking advantage of the different prices in the same market. There's no incentive to arbitrage. There's no incentive to round trip, and therefore, I suspect that the total demand by retail customers in Nigeria will not be as high as we had. And to debunk this idea that there's a shortage of foreign exchange. There's a shortage of foreign exchange at the subsidized price. There's no shortage of foreign exchange at the market price. Therefore, we will know by tomorrow, at the end of tomorrow, okay, yes, maybe $500 million is bidder, and the central bank gives, say, 300. The rate cuts off at about 1,700. Then the next day, the central bank comes again and says, we are doing $300 million. You would see immediately that the people that have bought the dollars and their naira has gone already will not have naira to come back for the subsequent bid. And so gradually, you begin to see the naira begin to appreciate, but it will take some time. I would suspect it will take a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks before you begin to find a stable, non-volatile naira, depending on the price of oil, the oil revenues, and the fact that we are able to, there's transparency in the process. And I think there will be transparency in the process.
All right, we hope there will be transparency, Mr. Rani. Thank you so much for sharing your views with us this morning, Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, let's take a break now. When we come back, we're still staying on the issue that's putting protesters on the street. Top on the list is food. Talk about that after the break. Yeah, well, there are protesters still on the streets in different parts. We learned in Ojota, where they've been camping. Well, I guess after yesterday, the protesters have decided to take a break. So reports from our correspondents out there is that, well, there are no protesters in Ojota. But that's not to say that that's what's happening in Abuja and some other parts of the country. Unfortunately, in some northern states, we've seen it take a twist and a turn that does not, majorly represent what the initial course was, unfortunately. But, we'll stay on the course, which is that the people are asking for, well, succor when it comes to the cost of living in the country. And top on the list, we know in Nigeria is food, with inflation at over about 41% at this time, driving headline inflation. At this time, let's see, perhaps there's a missing link, as we saw in that promo, asking what is the missing link to food sufficiency in Nigeria in the midst of abundance? How come food is still not abundant? Let's speak to Dr. Tope Daramola. He's the managing consultant, Delhi Barton Associates of Nigeria. He's a former chairman of Shonga Foods Holdings in Kwara State. Dr. Daramola, good morning and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Nick. Thanks for having me.
I wonder if Kwara would be a savior to Nigeria this time when it comes to food. We know that we had the farmers there, the former administration in that state, that were very focused on farming, agriculture. And then, of course, when you were heading Shonga Foods, that's supposed to be a major hub for food. But what are we missing? What do you see us missing in the country as a whole when it comes to food sufficiency, in spite of the good weather, the good soil, and and all?
Thank you very much. For those of us who have been actors in this sector, we are not surprised at what is happening. I've always thought, I would be surprised if anybody is surprised that we're in crisis that we are now, but because it's been on and all the signs are out there. I'm surprised people are not picking it up. For example, we know that there's complete disconnection from what we call policies that we have in Nigeria in farming and actually where these policies have been implemented. There's a wide gap between what we thought of and what is on the ground. So for Nigeria, for example, in the last 10 years, the problem that we're having now has been building up. Is it the insecurity that we are talking about that has chased away people from the farm? Without security, nobody can go to farm. Okay, so if you have farms and you can't access those farms, if you have factories, you can't go in there for food processing. So how do we have foods on the table? Now, the other thing that has been that led to these broken policies is because if you see gradually, there have been shifting and sifting of key resources away from this critical sector, which is farming, up to other sectors of the economy. The manpower are living, youth are living the farms. Quite a lot of people are not doing what they're supposed to do. They are not secured. The sector is not giving hope to people, and it's not rewarding operators and participants. So why do you want to be there? We all know how the basic economics show us how the economics works. Once a sector can offer, reward that is commensurate to the labor and input that you are putting there, you will stay in there. But for the case of farming in Nigeria, it has not been so. I remember when the Shonga farms took off in 2004 under the administration of Dr. Bukola Saraki there. The same problem we were having then, unfortunately, 20 years after, is the same problem we're still having. Okay, so we have problem of lack of infrastructure. For example, we have land. We don't have good access to that land. There's no irrigation. For example, we do rain-fed farming. Who does that in this age and time? Okay, for what window do we have rain in Nigeria? For us in Savannah area, maybe a maximum period of 4 months. How do you grow what the whole country want to eat within a period of 4 months? So we need to completely shift ground from where we've been and what we have been doing as a country, and begin to migrate to area where we can begin to have processes and policies that support, things that can enhance farming and farming production. I tell people food security is national security, as we have just seen. So serious attention must be given to food security, because without food, if people can't eat, they can do nothing. If you have not eaten, you can't be at work, you can't be safe. So the first line after safety is food security. And so we need to give it an appropriate priority.
So when you say we should shift grounds, Dr. Daramola, I wonder what you mean in practical terms. Now, we've seen duty-free import for 150 days. We've seen palliatives. We've seen the National Reserve being depleted. How many bags of rice? About 20, I think. Trucks of rice, beg your pardon, that the federal government ordered to be given to each state. Are these the kind of grounds you think we should be adopting? If not, what should we be doing?
Yeah, I felt all these interventions that we are doing now, these are all panic switch. It's a panic. Now, these are consequences of improper planning that was done before. We're paying the price now. And if we don't put our ass together now, we're still going to pay the price tomorrow. So what do I actually expect people to do, or for us to begin to do in the interim, almost immediately? Yes, the palliative that government is given, sharing rice up and down there, it's okay, I don't have a problem with that. But I also believe that we need to go back to the basic and begin to fix all the broken infrastructures that support farming. For example, in those days, we used to have the River Basin Authority that is deployed to provide irrigation, provide water to farmers. We have a lot of intervention in terms of database and extension, agri workers and etc. They all collapse. I can tell you, all those things are broken. All our days when we were in Chonga Farm, absolutely we found nothing. For example, 20 years ago, when we were going to take up with that farming, we want to know the base data that is available about agriculture in Nigeria. There's nothing to show. There's no land mapping. There's no, definition of soil test and classification of what kind of soil do we have in which state and what agriculture it can support and what kind of fertilizer should we be looking for. All those things are basic elementary level stuff that we need to have fixed by now. We have not done that. We're paying for it now. We have to go back to go and fix those things. And in fixing it, we need to be sure that the things that we are doing are proper. We need to be sure that it's focused and then they are monitored. Because one of the major problems that I'm seeing in this sector again is because there's no way to measure efficiency and productivity in government business. And so people just do.
Looks like the network of Dr. Daramola fluctuating right there, and we seem to have lost him. And he was about to complete his thoughts right there. But he did talk about the issue of soil test research, mostly. Dr. Darmal, are you back? All right, soil test.
Come again, I can't hear you.
Okay, all right, we lost you for a bit.
Yeah.
We have less than a minute. Could you just conclude your thoughts, please?
Okay, so my take for Nigeria as a country that we all belong to is for us to go back, immediately have, find a way to bring the manpower and the resources that is required for us to fix the agricultural sector. We need to fix the insecurity that is in the land. We need to bring, the manpower that is being in the farm together. We need to bring in there. The land that Mr. President said they are clearing, that's a good direction, but we need to know what do we do with that, and then what do we need to do to get the proper outcome. And then I had expected by now that the Minister for Agriculture should come out and tell Nigerians what exactly has been in the plan for the breakdown of all the proposals that the Mr. President has already given to us. They want to bring in food into the country. What will be the landing cost? What will be the intervention? Will it alleviate this issue of food security? People are hungry, and so people will continue to be angry. A hungry man is an angry man. So a quick intervention is required.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, Dr. Darmal, a whole lot to say.
Thank you.
Former Chairman, Shanga Farms Holdings in Kwara State, and now the Managing Consultant of Delhi Barton Associates Limited. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, there, yeah, Dr. Darmola calling on the Minister of Agriculture. I know, we've been calling on him, and we saw him on our sister program, Politics Today. Honorable Minister, we want to speak to you on Business Morning. Here, this is where we want to direct and dice out those issues about insecurity affecting food, about the price, about the soil, about the harvest loss that we're having in the country. Please come to Business Morning. We are waiting. Minister of Agriculture. All right, I don't think we have enough time to take the market today, but it was a red day yesterday. We'll give you details. Ladi Williams will be here with Anyeti Edet. That's at 1 p.m. Business Incorporated. Let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio.